So probably most of you know, but Baidu is the search engine, largest search engine in China. But beyond just doing search, it also does a lot of new developments in AI technology. It's really rebranding itself and focusing a lot of its energy on kind of the development of AI. And a big reason for that is kind of the abundance of data that's available to Baidu. So Baidu Ventures is a newly formed fund that's focused on, it's a $700 million fund focused on AI exclusively.
How much?
$700 million.
Small one.
Yeah. For China, it's not so big. So my role at Comet Labs is, we invest in a lot of early stage AI companies. And as part of that process, also, I'm working very closely with the Baidu Ventures team to help them develop some of their plans in the US. And so what I'll probably mostly talk about today is what we're doing at Comet Labs, but it's really in parallel with Baidu Ventures because we come from a very similar vision, and they're also one of the big supporters of what we're doing. So should I go ahead and get started? Okay.
What do you mean get started? You're almost finishing by now. Go ahead.
So maybe I'll just give a quick background on myself. I lived in China for about 15, 20 years, and I was an entrepreneur a few times. And during that process, I saw kind of what it took to build a startup. And it's really a lot harder than it seems. I'm sure a lot of the people in this room are very familiar with that. And so we started spending a lot of time thinking about what is possible in kind of this realm of AI. So the initial kind of title that you guys had given to talk about was the future of global investing, but that's pretty much covers everything under the sun. So I kind of narrowed it a little bit on specifically AI, which is what we're really focusing on a lot now. So maybe we can just, is there like a clicker or something that I should use? We can just go to.
Well, you came with very high expectations.
Let's hope the technology works, yeah. So Comet Labs, I'll just do this very quickly, is a very new group. We have a $50 million fund. We invest in two major types of companies, which is enabling technology of AI, things like new algorithms, new communications platforms, new sensors, and applications of AI. We're kind of the most active right now early stage investor in AI and robotics in the US. We've done about 50 investments over the last year and a half. And we're focusing a lot on this idea of global investment, particularly US and China. And I'll talk a little bit about why in a minute. So first, I'll start with kind of why AI and robotics is something that everybody's talking about, but us in particular are focusing all of our energy on. And I think that this is a confluence of three big trends that have happened. The first one is, there's been, the way we look at technology innovation is that it's one wave after another. So we had kind of the wave of communications infrastructure, and then on top of that, people built applications for the internet, whether it's search or listening to music or all these different things. And then the next wave of infrastructure was the mobile revolution, and we had phones in everybody's pockets, and the applications of the mobile revolution were things that we didn't really expect. They allowed us to have better transportation networks, communication, video, and it totally changed the world of commerce. But what we think now is that actually we have a new wave of infrastructure available to us, which is kind of this AI technology. And really what we believe is that this is going to be a much larger wave than any of the previous technology waves. The second piece is that this kind of idea of machine intelligence has really reached inflection point. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen like drastic increase in accuracy of all kinds of algorithms, and that's been really exciting. And the third one is, we just now we were talking a little bit about kind of wearables, but just in general, this whole idea of IoT and sensors being all over. There's now touch points for kind of the computer brain to be interacting with everything in our lives, not just through the screen, but whether it's on our body or in the agriculture farm or in the construction site, we have kind of a way to understand what's going on and interact with it. But at the same time, if we look at kind of the largest industries in the world, I think accounts for about like 70–80% of GDP is things like agriculture, construction, oil and gas, retail, healthcare, and most of these industries have stayed very similar for the last 50–60 years. We've had some information flow within these industries, but fundamentally their business models are exactly the same as they were in the past. And we think now with kind of this new wave of sensors and technology that's available, each of these industries is going to have a completely fundamental shift using these new systems. We've seen a lot of hype over the last few months around kind of autonomous driving, and that's granted it's a very, very meaningful problem to be solved, but we really think this is just the tip of the iceberg. The transportation world is definitely going to be changed, but this is only one of many, many, many different things in our lives that are going to look completely different in 5 or 10 years. So this gets to kind of where we're talking about the whole global thing. This really is a global phenomenon, and we look in the U.S. and of course we see a lot of exciting companies, and Mobileye from Israel is another exciting company. But China has also been a really, really important part of this whole process. So I pulled up this just one slide which shows a bit about kind of academic journals covering the topic of deep learning. Of course, deep learning has become a bit of a hype, but if we look at the number of papers that have been published in the last few years, the quantity has gone above what's happening in the US. And this is for a lot of reasons. One, of course, is talent and training. But another really big reason is because the types of data sets that you need to train really meaningful AI models are only available in very few places in the world. And China is one of those places. And so when you have access to all this data, as Baidu has, it allows you to build really meaningful decision systems and predictive modeling systems. And this is a really great opportunity for startups as well. So we invest in these two kinds of companies, infrastructure companies and applications companies. And one of the big predictions that we have is that, that the first applications of AI are going to be B2B. And the main reason for this is because if we look at what AI is good at right now, people talk about it as some magical force, but it's really not. It really is very good at understanding very structured environments and being able to solve a very clearly defined set of problems. And for consumer use, like in our home or in our phone, that's generally not the case. You get all kinds of questions popping up every minute. But in business use cases, especially industrial use cases, there's a very clearly defined problem set and very clearly measurable results in terms of efficiency. But at the same time, it's much more difficult to build these kinds of companies than it is to build a mobile app. You can build a mobile app kind of sitting in your basement somewhere and building a new just writing some code. But for AI company, it's actually very different. Most of the people who are building AI systems come from very academic backgrounds. They spent many, many years getting their PhDs. And it's very difficult for them to go in and understand a very traditional industry. Agriculture is a great example where if you haven't spent 5-10 years in the field, it's very hard to understand what the meaningful use cases. And so we see 100 companies that have come out that are saying, oh, we're going to use satellite data to give you better information about your farm. And then every farmer that we talk to says, actually, I don't care about that. And it's the same thing in industry after industry. Entrepreneurs are building things that are not useful. And so what they really need help with is close product definition. They need help with product definition. So what we do, and kind of as Baidu is also doing this, is bringing together a lot of really potential use cases and saying, here are the things that will actually affect this industry, and here's how you can build it, and then helping them get access to those customers. So I'll skip through this. So based on all of the AI companies that we've invested in, we've kind of identified 3 major things that are really important for these AI companies to be built. And oh, my slide is gone. Can we go back to the other slides?
Don't challenge the system too much.
Don't challenge. So I'm just going to go really quickly. So, and this is kind of goes back to the idea of why this is such a global phenomenon. So this is just one street corner in a typical street in Beijing. If you count the number of cameras there's probably like 30 of them, right? And this is very, very typical on a Beijing street corner. So the amount of video data that's being collected in every airport, train station, and every road, this is kind of golden a gold mine for startups. And so as an investor, we think what we really need to do is identify where this data is available, where the high quality data is, and help startups to use it. The next thing is test environments. And when we think about kind of AI technologies, these test environments are a big question, because the places where there's the most pressure on the existing infrastructure is where the new technologies are going to be used first. So this is a typical department store in Beijing, and you can see the length of the line of people waiting for a fitting room. So clearly, kind of the way things were done before is not adequate for a market that's growing as quickly as China. And so, this is another really great use case for AI technologies to come in and do 3D scans of the body and help you do virtual fitting rooms. Here's another one. This is the waiting line for a restaurant in Beijing. So people are kind of lined up around the block in circles, just waiting to get to get some food. Again, a really great application for automation technologies to make the ordering process simpler, make the line more efficient, make the food, like building the food more faster, and getting it into your hands through delivery and drones and all these different things. Like, there's a clear use case here. And this is another one that we love to show. This is a typical subway stop in Beijing. If you go, this isn't just some special case. If you go on like a Monday morning at 7 a.m. to try to take the subway, this is what you're gonna have to
Dirk, where are you, Dirk?
This comes with a whole series of questions. How do we make, because safety is of course a really important concern. So how can we process all of these people very, very rapidly and know that they're verified? How do we make sure that they're not carrying any dangerous weapons? How do we get them onto and off of the train more efficiently? There's the 100 use cases here for a startup to be able to go and solve. And so we've seen a lot of startups go and build solutions for this. One of the companies we invested in is called Megvii, and they do facial recognition, and they're now kind of one of the world leaders in recognizing faces very quickly. And the reason that they can do it so well, and they're beating Facebook and Google at certain types of accuracy, the reason they can do it so well is because there's a desperate use case here, and there's a lot of data available for them to train their models with. So this is something that we, again, as investors are looking for, is really clear use cases. And the last is, we have all these different partners, and all of them are offering different kinds of mentorship and advice for these startups. But the main thing, the most important thing that they bring is a really clear knowledge of, what's useful and what's not. And I think this is, our goal here is to help startups to stop building the wrong things. So I don't know how much time is left, but I was going to go through some examples of companies that we've invested in. But if time is short, then I'll just skip that part. Is there? Keep going? Okay. Are we okay on time? So I'll go through a few companies that are really exciting. One of them that we've invested in is called AirMap, and this is what we think of as a kind of a fundamental layer for AI technology and autonomy. We've seen they've within the span of a couple of years gotten millions of drones on their system, and they're providing kind of airspace information for every drone around the world. So of course, a lot of hardware in drone technology is becoming commoditized. But for you to have real autonomy, you need to collect lots of data and know what clearly the regulations are, and then provide it for pilots. There's a few other examples that I'm happy to talk through later on if anybody's interested.
Thank you very, very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a special thing, second performance of David in the same